and welcome to Live with Sujay. And I'm Dr. Sujay, Ambassador Sujay, but we're all the way live and in living color. Thank you for sharing this time with us. We're so excited and delighted and ignited. Want to thank the LTV crew and all of those who make this possible, and the Global Black Women's Chamber of Commerce that I'm leading and that we're building to advance a force of women all over the globe who are business owners. But today I'm excited to have in our studio Dr. Linda Anderson and Mr. Saleem Abdal Khaaliq. I got it. All right. Welcome.
Thank you.
Friends, neighbors, but professionals who are doing amazing things to make sure that our world is going to be a better place. So you're a couple as well as a couple of writers, and you're doing amazing work. So I'm going to start with you, Saleem. You have a book here, and it's called Mind Sands. And why did you come up with this title of selected poems?
Okay, well, because I've written since I probably was in high school, so I had to make choices about what would be in there. But I chose Mind Sand because we have these little sand trails of thoughts that change all the time.
Now, you were an educator,
Yes.
and so you worked at, what's called the first early intervention, Bard College. What was the early acceptance?
No, it was early, well, it was early college.
Meaning you could go like at 15 and 16?
Yes.
Okay,
So
awesome.
I was there for a long time on the student development side of the house, and also I did transportation before I left.
Wow.
So,
So in the years of education, so yours has been higher education for the most
Yes.
part. And then one of the last stops was at Hostos College.
Correct.
So I assume that's where you met Dr. Linda Anderson. So Dr. Linda Anderson, you have a history at Hostos College. Tell us what that is and who you are.
I'm a clinical psychologist, a professor, a psychotherapist, and an author.
Yes.
And I spent many years in the South Bronx
Yes.
teaching many of our wonderful youth through City University
Yes. And
at Hostos, which is really a beacon of hope.
it is. I grew up most of my life in the Bronx, and I was on the Grand Concourse. I remember when it was 2 buildings, and now it is a community. It's several buildings. It's an institution and university. And you've written a book, Silent Agreements: How to Free Your Relationships of Unspoken Expectations, with Sonia Banks, Dr. Sonia Banks, and Dr. Michelle Owens. Tell us what silent agreements are and why it's important for us to know about them.
You know, this book is a labor of love and about how we just need to improve our communication within ourselves, with others, and within our communities. So silent agreements are really the unspoken expectations, assumptions, belief that we all carry.
Give us an example of a silent agreement.
Okay, well, some are very aligned, and we don't have to talk about them.
Yeah.
Like, you're at home, I do the dishes, you dry the dishes.
Okay.
Nothing needs to be said.
Right.
We are in rhythm.
Yes.
And so those silent agreements are aligned.
Love it.
It's when they're not aligned that we
Okay.
often run into challenges.
Okay, so give me an example of a non-aligned one.
Well, before I do that, I want to read a quote.
Yes.
And the quote is by Khalil Gibran.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's a beautiful quote.
One of my favorite prophets.
Yes. Between what is said and not spoken, and what is spoken and not said, love is lost.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Yes.
And so it's the reason why we need to keep on getting better at it.
Yes. Totally. Totally.
You know.
So speaking of love, I mean, you're a couple who write, you're a couple of wonderful people, a couple of friends. Let's look at some pictures of the two of you, because you not only write, you also play together. Let's look at some pictures. Tell me what this picture is that we're looking at.
That was part of our travel, and actually Black Hebrews.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
in
we just did a
Israel.
show on faith, and so that's wonderful. So that's in Israel. And where is this?
That's actually in Playa del Carmen in Mexico, and we love the water. We always gravitate to the water.
I love it,
so-
and you're a longtime Sands resident here in
Indeed.
Sag Harbor. And this is recently I took this
That's
picture.
right. That's
So
right.
we were having a cultural arts fair, creatives, and both of you were there signing your books. How did you do?
Well.
Networking. You know,
Yeah.
it's all about building community, letting people know what you do.
Exactly.
Every conversation is really the great potential to learn
Exactly.
more about each other.
Exactly. And let's see these next pictures. Okay, so I wonder who those two are. Where was this? On an evening event? Okay, let's go to the next one. This is my favorite. Now, where was this?
Pace.
Pace University?
Yes.
Yeah, we're visiting our son.
Okay, wonderful. So you have fun together, you travel together. SANS residents, and for most people who don't know, tell us what SANS stands for.
Yes, it is part of our
Historic
network
Beach
of
Community.
historic beach community.
So
for
it's
sure.
Sag Harbor Hills, Azure
Azure
Rest,
Rest.
where I live,
And
Nineveh,
Nineveh,
where you
where we
live, and then the subdivisions are the other side of 114.
Right.
So we're really a wonderful community, which is why we started doing the celebration of Black culture for the very reason you talked about it being at the creatives, so that we can know who each other are, what we do. So I'm interested, Saleem, in your book, Ellis Coast, who was on my White House Fellows panel, he was a
Okay.
commissioner.
Yes.
He's author of The Rage of a Privileged Class, The End of Anger, and numerous other books. He says this about you. So Saleem Abdal Khaaliq's poetic voice runs the gamut from ironic anger to bemused awareness as he takes aim, among other things, at U.S. policies towards non-European immigrants, at the bittersweet emotions and insights evoked by song, at the melancholy motivations of an abandoned soul. I love that phrase. But more than anything, he aims at complacency, at the easy acceptance of a reality that is not quite real, even as he appeals to us to acknowledge and honor our better selves, especially when it comes to our children. Talk to me about why you write and what that means.
I write because I have to. It's a compulsion, definitely. And some of the poems that I do are talking about things like immigration and love. Poems come out of pain, they come out of anger, they come out of loneliness. It's a lot.
Do you go to bed and things pop in your head? Are you sitting? Like, kind of tell us how you get a poem from head to paper.
It's a really interesting way to kind of explain, because what happens is I may just get stuck on a phrase, and then I develop that phrase into something else. I like wordplay,
Yes.
so words like tonic and toxic,
Yes. Okay.
flip in my head like, how can it be the opposite?
Okay.
There's only one letter that's different.
So I speak, and preach, and so I use a lot of alliteration. So the T's or the R's, I mean, I rock them because that helps me remember my points. But can you read a poem to us, one of your poems, and one of your favorites? Share with us what you're reading and why you're picking this particular one out.
Okay, so this is called Baby Talk, and the reason I'm picking this one out is because I think it's something that actually speaks to most of us.
Okay.
And Linda's partly responsible for these things, because she's the one that said, if you took those poems out of your sock drawer and did something with them, you might have something.
Okay, and now you have something. Okay. Yes.
Baby Talk. If we treated every child like poetry, the history of ourselves would be read and not forgotten. If we saw the poetry in our children, we could see their reflection and understand they are our lasting light. If we created children like the poet creates poetry, it would be a true act of love. If we read the poetry in their eyes, we would not go foolishly to parenthood. We would not admonish them vainly, nor abuse their delicate beginnings, but we would speak poems to them softly and watch them grow from the essence of our words.
Ooh. So when you see someone like an Amanda Gorman, what does that do to you?
I love the fact that she came out so young. A lot of poets have written for a very long time, but they don't they don't get recognized, and she broke out. The fact that there are
You want a
some folks,
stage to break out on, right?
yeah, it was a beautiful stage to break out. The fact that there are folks that are trying to ban the poem is really
Amazing.
ridiculous to me.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Linda Anderson, you co-wrote this book with two of the other women that I mentioned, Dr. Sonia Banks and Michelle Owens. The book is called Silent Agreements: How to Free Your Relationships of Unspoken Expectations. But you've also, the three of you have taken this on tour. What do you do? Are all three of you psychologists?
We're all three of us are clinical psychologists.
So what kind of
African-American
audiences
women.
do you go to, and what are you hoping to do when you get there?
I will say that every time we have provided professional development, for example, training, workshops, we do community-based.
Mm-hmm.
So we may go to churches to discuss a particular topic that we're asked to relate to silent
Okay.
agreements.
Yes, yes.
We go to universities let's see, the last time we talked about silent agreements and sexual consent, silent agreements and bias, dealing with implicit bias.
Yes, yes.
So
So the audience will identify what their need is, and then you
Correct.
will tailor the conversation.
absolutely, because we all carry assumptions
Mhm.
and beliefs
Mm-hmm.
and expectations that often we need to become clearer about what it is that we bring to the table without holding someone accountable for something that may not even exist.
Right, right. So how do you measure when you're doing a workshop? What are the expected outcomes? Do you go ahead of time say, this is what we think we can help lift out for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We heavily consult
Mm-hmm.
with the people that bring us to the table. We only want to work with people who want change.
Okay. They have to want it.
They have to want it.
And then how do they find you?
We have a website,
And what's it called?
silentagreements.com.
That sounds like an easy one to
Yes, it
remember.
is.
So let me just read one of the excerpts on the back of your book. It says, clinical psychologists Dr. Anderson, Banks, and Owens will help you explore your agreements and work towards healthier communication with a partner, a friend, a boss, or a family member. And in the process, you'll learn more about your own motivations and how to dismantle the beliefs that don't serve you. So we have to do some dismantling, it sounds like, because each of us from our childhood are impacted by the environment, usually our parents, our first teacher, or the home. And then, so how do you go in? So sometimes you may not just do it in one shot.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Okay, so you may have to do like a 3 to 6 month period of that we're coming back and we're lifting this and we identify. Are there places that there's pain?
Unfortunately, there's going to be pain
Okay.
when we really want that growth,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Having to get through some of the baggage
Yes.
that we all carry.
Yes.
And I would just say that the domains in the book represent some of the difficult ones that we address: money,
Mm-hmm.
sex,
Yes.
family, health,
Yes.
the workplace challenges that we all have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we kind of have a breadth of
Okay.
topics and domains that we love and are eager to help others explore.
So in a sense, it's group therapy. But what happens if, like, within that session, people say, I need more, I need like personal therapy? Would you be available to them for contract, or do you kind of say that's a conflict of interest?
Well, I will just say this. People do have our cards. We're there to educate.
Okay, okay.
We are really there to educate and use inquiry
Mm-hmm.
as, one of our main pedagogy.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So people are really doing their own work
Yes.
with us as guides,
Yes.
and facilitators.
Guide is, and
You know,
facilitating it, yes.
And then folks know how to reach us if they wish down the line, and we certainly refer out to, our network of folks.
So in the educational field, what would be an example of people saying that we have some silent agreements that we need to look at? What would be in a higher education field? What would be kind of a scenario? Can you give us a synopsis?
Sure. I would say that this pandemic created incredible gaps of
Yes.
communication
Yes.
and isolation
Mm.
and avoidance of showing up at the workplace, for
Yes.
example,
Yes.
out of great fear
Mm-hmm.
that we all understand. So getting back now to the workplace
Mm-hmm.
is a great challenge
Yes.
for, especially the deserts, the workplace deserts.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we
Which is one of the reasons we formed the Global Black Women's Chamber of Commerce. People's lives changed. And when we used that word pivot, they had to pivot towards something. And so that's really important that you identify that suicide became very prevalent, or a high rate of it during the pandemic and post. When you have some of these sessions, are you able to identify that someone might be in trouble, or some groups of someone's may be in trouble?
I would just say that we are there to offer safe spaces for
Nice.
exploration,
Nice.
and that we will, ally with anyone participating in our session
Yes, yes.
to support them
Great.
through perhaps a difficult conversation or revelation,
Right.
some new awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say, given our professional backgrounds,
Sure.
we're very aware
All right.
and always processing how people are coping
Yes.
with new information
Yes.
or
Mm-hmm.
with frustration because, they're not quite there.
Of course. Coping is a good word. I was going to ask you, Saleem. So, are any of your poems about holding on, about coping, about hanging in there?
A lot, actually. And it's funny that you brought up suicide, because one of the last ones that I've written, our most recent one, was what to wear to a suicide. Is the name of it. So yes, we're not going to read that today.
No,
but yes, I mean it is about hanging in all of the time. It's perseverance. It's your ability to reflect and to actually bounce back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
So,
resilience,
that's really yes, it's
real
key.
important. So let's talk family, because not only do we see the two of you just really lovey-dovey and hope and excited with each other, which is wonderful. I just love being around the two of you. But you have 8 children, and how many grandchildren? Or is it 8 grandchildren?
I have 8 grandchildren from 4 children.
Oh my goodness! Okay, and how many? And there's some great.
2 great grandchildren.
Okay, so
yeah,
plentiful.
it is plentiful.
Okay.
It's a wonderful thing.
And together you share a son.
Yes.
Mhm.
We're a blended family.
Which is so nice.
It is, and we, I write about it in Silent Agreements. I mean, a lot of folks are trying to figure out new arrangements
Yes.
and second acts and
Yes.
third acts,
Mhm.
right?
So give us some advice, because I've seen your son grow. Our kids are about the same age, one of our sons. And so now he's a young man with an apartment now, which I'm loving. I'm like, I'll trade you.
Right?
So what are young African American men facing? And how do you advise single moms and 2-parent households to help young Black men?
My goodness, well, that's
That's a whole show.
series.
That's a
That's
series.
a series right
Yeah.
there. But I'm glad you're lifting that point,
Mm-hmm.
because it does really take a village.
Mm-hmm.
And while my son is, while Saleem is not the biological father of my son, he does have a father,
Mm-hmm.
another father. We co-parent. That's the
Nice.
word I want to use.
Yes.
So also through a former marriage, I have a stepson.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his mother, my son, we are co-mothers.
I love it. I love it.
And I share this. I'm ready to share
Yes.
it, because we have got to find a way to communicate
Yes.
our love for the children
To support them.
and support them,
Mhm.
and do it in a way where we're not split up
Right.
in these individual cells.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Our kids
Because
need
children
us.
love all of us.
They
Yeah.
want to see unity.
Yes, they do. They do. That's so
and
important.
we want to see it
Yes.
because again, it's unspoken,
Right.
but let's figure out how we're gonna make this work.
I love it. I love it. Yes. How many years have you two been together?
Ooh, 22.
Wow. What would your advice be? First of all, you're the first man on Live with Sujay, so
Oh,
welcome.
well, thank you.
Yeah, you're the
Yes,
first of
yes,
many.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, very nice.
But tell us, what would you offer in terms of advice?
I have 3 boys, so part of it is they're gonna do what they see, not what you tell them. And like I always say, listen and silent are made up of the same letters.
Wow.
So you have to actually
Say that one more time. Listen and silent. Same letters. Oh my gosh.
So they are part of each other. That's why I say wordplay is important.
Yeah.
So,
I gotta hang with you.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes.
So yeah. So it's hard, but now that they have children of their own, a lot of the times I see what, forgive me, I put in them reflected back.
Wow.
And it's very interesting and I guess satisfying to know when they're in their 30s and they come back and say, Dad, how did you and Mom ever do it?
Yeah.
How did you do it?
Okay.
So,
do they ever get out your pocket? That's what I want to know. I was like, I looked at my bank account. I was like, I didn't do that, but it's all good. But I like
you have to attend one of our workshops on Monday.
on this silent agreement because we didn't agree on this.
We didn't agree on this at all.
I'm like, you can't leave home without it.
That's
You
right.
know,
Sign up for that.
It's all good.
So true.
But it's important, the wordplay. So I do a retreat for professional women, so a faith-based wellness retreat, and it's called Selah, S-E-L-A-H, from the Bible, meaning pause, by the sea. And so it's a healing situation. So somebody lifted up, Selah and heals are the same letters. And so that's what we hope happens for women who are always in the front lines, always doing caregiving for your family, caregiving for your community. And so let's talk about healing for our communities. You do it through poetry, you give some healing words, you see it and you do it through your workshops and your writing. What do we need to do individually and collectively? I'll start with Saleem.
It's interesting. Well, because Linda and I actually write from different domains, we have a different take on what healing feels like and what it looks like.
Okay.
And for me, a lot of it is inward.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to go inward if you want to heal. And yes, you may have guidance from someone, but you really have to be able to evaluate where you are, where you've been, and where what that means.
So you have to take a really good look inside. You can't avoid it. You can't avoid you.
Right, exactly.
Right, so that's good. So I say make a U-turn, a Y-O-U turn, and really begin to look. How do you see healing and how do you see it happening?
So many facets of it, appreciating that healing really involves all the senses. All the senses.
Yes.
And incorporating that as much as we can every day. So, using the breath for 2 minutes to become more aware of what it really feels like to relax, which doesn't happen very often.
Right.
Incorporating the music that soothes your soul.
Very nice. I have Alexa. I say, Alexa, this is what I need today. play this. Play this.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's important. Yeah.
So think about 5 senses that are going to nurture, calm, increase, just helpful thoughts, changing the language that we carry inside and working on that.
Yes.
I mean, Saleem does workshops with young people to help them change the language and become more aware through poetry.
And how do people find you, Saleem?
They kind of see me as the person, when I was a supervisor, they kind of said that I was the non-supervisor, partly because I didn't micromanage folks.
Which is nice.
Yes.
Do you have a website where people could find you as well?
I do. It's mindsandbook.com.
Okay, and I want you to find a poem for us to close with that you feel is healing if it's in Mind Sand, but we're going to come back to it. If you can flip the pages while we're talking. But it's interesting. So we used words sand, senses, I talk about Selah. So is there another S word? So I also use soul care and self care. That are places, and to your point in terms of turning in, that you've got to do self-care and soul care, which are all the things you just described, the music that soothes you, the places that soothe. So Sag Harbor for me is a safe space and it's a healing space, so that it's definitely different from the rat race. So now that you're living in Sag Harbor, how do you do your self-care? And we're going to come to your poem. You have about 30 seconds. Do you have one that you know by heart?
I have a short one, very
Okay,
short.
all right, so Lynn, do you have the last answer?
Well, the self-reflection is at its peak on the beach, doing walks. All the senses are being stimulated,
Yes.
picking up the shells,
Yes.
looking at the water,
Mm-hmm.
and noticing the textures,
Okay.
right?
So we have 30 seconds. Can you do your poem in 30?
I can do it in
Let's
30.
do it. The closing poem.
Okay, it's called Yellow Brick Road. People of color in blue collars with no green card meet red, white, and blue smiles head on, in white collars who use invisible ink to redline and blackball, all in the same stroke.
Ooh. And that was Saleem Abdal Khaaliq. And this is Dr. Linda Anderson. I'm Dr. Sujay. We've been together today, the author of Silent Agreements, one of 3 authors, Silent Agreements, Dr. Linda Anderson, How to Free Your Relationships of Unspoken Expectations, and Mind Sands. And that's a mouthful. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Come back and see us next time.